Humanity had always been considered insignificant in the grand scheme of the galaxy. For centuries, they had struggled to make their presence known in the vastness of space. Their technology was young, and their civilizations were still recovering from their own wars. Yet there was one thing the galaxy had underestimated: the humans' determination and their capacity to adapt. As the strange signals sent by humanity's ships reached the leaders of other worlds, fear began to spread like wildfire. At first, no one knew what to make of the signals. They were unlike anything the galaxy had ever received. A series of cryptic bursts, each one more disturbing than the last, spread across the stars. The message was clear but confusing. The voices that accompanied the signals were human, but they sounded different, cold, menacing, like they had lost any trace of mercy. "We are coming," they said, "and we will show you the price of defying us." The galaxy's leaders gathered in their council chambers, trying to piece together the mystery. Some thought it was a warning. Others feared it was an invasion. But no one, not even the most seasoned commanders, could prepare for what came next. The first strike did not come with a traditional invasion. There was no grand fleet moving in from the edge of the galaxy, no countdown to a terrifying bombardment. Instead, it came in the form of a single, massive warship that appeared out of nowhere. It was unlike anything anyone had seen before: sleek, dark, with weapons that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The humans called it the Wrathbringer. It slipped through the galaxy's defenses like a shadow, its intentions unclear until the moment of its arrival. The ship stopped just outside the borders of the United Galactic Coalition, the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. And then it spoke. A voice, cold and emotionless, echoed across every communication channel. "We are the descendants of a forgotten empire. Do not mistake us for mere wanderers. This galaxy is under our protection, and we claim what is ours." The message sent a shockwave through the galaxy. The coalition leaders stared in disbelief. They had always thought humanity was weak, but now they realized they had made a grave mistake. The voice continued, "You will bow before us or face the consequences. We will not ask again." With those final words, the Wrathbringer fired a single shot, a beam of light, so powerful and precise, it struck the flagship of the coalition, the Titan star. In an instant, the massive vessel disintegrated, leaving only a cloud of debris behind. The destruction was absolute. There was no warning, no chance for retaliation. The Titan star, a symbol of power and unity for the coalition, was gone. The attack sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The coalition immediately called for a meeting of all its members. Fear gripped the hearts of the galaxy's most powerful species. How could humanity, a young race that had only just begun to venture into space, possess such power? And why did they attack without any provocation? There were many questions, but no answers. All the galaxy could do was prepare for what was to come. Back on Earth, the leaders of humanity watched the response unfold with a strange mix of pride and anxiety. They knew the consequences of their actions would be severe, but they had made their choice. Humanity had always been underestimated, and it was time to change that. The Wrathbringer was not just a weapon, it was a message. A declaration that humanity was no longer the weak, struggling species it once was. They had rediscovered the power of their ancient ancestors, and they would use it to reshape the galaxy. As the galaxy's leaders scrambled to respond, humanity made its next move. The Wrathbringer was not alone. A fleet of human warships, each more terrifying than the last, arrived in the outer reaches of Coalition space. These ships were not large in number, but they were powerful. Each one was equipped with technology that seemed to defy the laws of physics. They moved with precision, disappearing and reappearing in moments, striking with deadly accuracy. The human fleet was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. One by one, the galactic defenses crumbled. The Wrathbringer and its fleet moved through the Coalition's borders, picking off their most advanced ships with terrifying ease. The Coalition's commanders, once confident in their superiority, now realized they were fighting a force that operated on a completely different level. The human ships could attack faster, smarter, and more ruthlessly than anything they had ever faced. In one of the first battles, the Coalition sent their largest fleet, the Stellar Vanguard, to engage the humans. The Stellar Vanguard was the pride of the Coalition, a fleet of massive ships that had never been defeated. But it was no match for humanity's new weapons. The battle began with the Stellar Vanguard firing a volley of powerful energy beams at the Wrathbringer. But the human ship simply disappeared, evading the attack with an unnatural speed. The next moment, the Wrathbringer reappeared behind the Stellar Vanguard, its weapons lighting up the dark void of space. Within seconds, the flagship of the Stellar Vanguard was reduced to rubble. The rest of the Coalition fleet quickly retreated, unable to counter the precision and ferocity of the human strikes. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Humanity, once thought of as an unremarkable species, had suddenly become the most dangerous force in the galaxy. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting to be recognized as the rulers of this new age. Back in the Coalition's war rooms, panic spread like wildfire. The galaxy's leaders could no longer deny the truth. Humanity had the power to destroy them all. But what did humanity want? Why had they attacked? Some whispered that humanity sought revenge for the years of being overlooked and underestimated. Others feared that the humans were preparing to take control of the entire galaxy, conquering planet after planet until nothing was left but ashes. As humanity's warships continued to move across the stars, their purpose became clearer. They were not simply seeking revenge. They were sending a message. This is what happens when you underestimate us. We will not be ignored anymore. The Wrathbringer continued its path, leaving destruction in its wake. It moved deeper into Coalition space, its arrival signaling the end of any hope the galaxy had of defeating humanity. The galaxy's greatest minds were now scrambling for a way to combat this new threat. But every plan they came up with seemed to fall short. The humans had an answer for everything. It was as if they knew the galaxy's every move before it was made. And as humanity's warships advanced, the galaxy knew that they were no longer the masters of their own fate. They had awakened a force they could not control. The humans had come to claim what they believed was rightfully theirs, and there was nothing the galaxy could do to stop them. Fear spread throughout the galaxy as they realized the truth. Humanity had arrived, and they would never again be the forgotten species in the stars. They had struck first, and the consequences were beyond anything anyone could have imagined. The war for the galaxy had just begun, and no one knew how it would end. Humanity had always been viewed with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism by the galaxy's more advanced civilizations. They were young, eager, and unpolished in the vast cosmic dance, and the galactic powers saw no reason to be overly concerned. But humanity had been quietly preparing for this moment. The galaxy had no idea what it had awakened when it brushed aside the growing human presence in the cosmos. The first strike came in an unexpected and terrifying way. It was a morning like any other on Earth. The people went about their daily lives, unaware that a storm was brewing in the stars. However, on that day, a strange event took place. All across the galaxy, peaceful communications channels were suddenly jammed by an ominous low hum. The transmissions came from deep within the unknown regions of space, and within moments, every major species in the galaxy had received a broadcast from humanity. The message was brief but chilling. "We are coming, and we will show you what true power is." Many at first thought it was a bluff, a desperate cry for attention from a species still finding its way among the stars. But the truth was far worse than anyone could imagine. The humans weren't just speaking empty threats. They had found something ancient, something deadly. The first human ship to cross into the galaxy's central hub was a massive, imposing warship named the Wrathbringer. It was a dark behemoth, unlike any vessel that the galaxy had ever encountered. Its shape was angular and sleek, designed for both stealth and devastating force. The ship's power surged with strange, almost unnatural energy, and it was surrounded by a fleet of smaller, equally terrifying ships that followed in its wake. They were fast, efficient, and deadly, perfectly coordinated, as if they had been working together for centuries. At first, the galaxy's leaders were unsure of how to respond. They tried to make contact, sending polite messages and inquiring about the purpose of humanity's sudden arrival. However, the humans would not respond. It was as if they were deliberately avoiding diplomacy. Instead, the Wrathbringer simply moved silently through space, its presence sending ripples of fear through the most powerful galactic empires. It wasn't until the Wrathbringer entered the outer rim of the United Galactic Coalition space that the full scope of humanity's power was revealed. Without warning, the human ship fired. One shot. It was not a simple blast of energy, but something far more devastating. The beam struck the Titan star, the flagship of the Coalition. This was no ordinary ship. It was the pride of the galaxy's unified forces, a massive vessel that had never been bested in battle. But against the Wrathbringer, it stood no chance. In an instant, the Titan star was obliterated, reduced to nothing but a cloud of debris. The sheer magnitude of the destruction left the Coalition reeling. The galaxy had never seen such raw power before. In the blink of an eye, the Wrathbringer had made a statement that echoed throughout the galaxy. Humanity had arrived, and they would not be ignored. The leaders of the Coalition scrambled for answers. How had the humans managed to destroy their flagship so easily? Was this some sort of advanced weapon that no one had known about? But there was no time for answers. The attack was swift, and the message clear. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to claim what is ours. Chaos broke out in the Coalition's war rooms as military commanders called for action. Every ship in the fleet was mobilized, and battle plans were drawn up. But none of them knew how to face the force that humanity had unleashed. The Wrathbringer was a ghost, slipping through the stars without a trace. The other human ships appeared out of nowhere, taking out defense stations and crippling the most advanced weapon systems in the galaxy. Their ships moved with a terrifying precision, as if they had been built to do nothing but destroy. The galaxy's forces couldn't keep up. They had never faced an enemy like this, an enemy that struck without warning and vanished before they could even retaliate. As the days passed, humanity's power became undeniable. One by one, major galactic species fell back, retreating from human space with fear in their eyes. The leaders of the galaxy's civilizations began to realize something they had never considered before. They had underestimated humanity. They had believed the humans were a fledgling race, too young and too weak to threaten the established order of the galaxy. But now, humanity had proven that it could destroy anything that stood in its way. The fear that spread was not just from the destruction itself, but from the chilling realization that humanity was not acting alone. The Wrathbringer had been only the first of many ships, each carrying the same deadly power. It became clear that the humans were not fighting to simply survive. They were fighting to dominate, to reassert control over the galaxy. At first, the Coalition tried to counter the human advance. They sent their best fleets to face the humans, determined to defend their home systems. But humanity's ships were not only stronger, they were smarter. The Wrathbringer's mysterious weapon systems were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each strike from the human ships felt like it was perfectly timed, as if the humans had anticipated every move their enemies would make. The ships seemed to flicker in and out of existence, striking with precision and vanishing before any counterattack could be launched. It was soon evident that the war was not about to be won through traditional means. No matter how advanced the galactic forces were, they simply could not keep up with the speed and ferocity of humanity's attacks. One of the galaxy's largest fleets, the Stellar Vanguard, tried to mount a defense in a desperate bid to stop humanity's progress. But once again, the humans were one step ahead. The Stellar Vanguard was engaged in a pitched battle, only to be torn apart in a matter of hours. There was no mercy. There was no negotiation. Humanity had come for one thing only: victory. In the chaos, the galaxy's leaders began to wonder if they had made a terrible mistake. Was this a battle for power, or was it a battle for survival? Humanity had given them no choice but to fight, and now the galaxy was learning the terrible cost of underestimating a species capable of such destruction. In the depths of human space, far beyond the reach of galactic law, a new order was being forged. Humanity's message was simple and clear. The galaxy was theirs for the taking. They would not be ignored any longer, and anyone who stood in their way would pay the price. The first strike was only the beginning. As the Wrathbringer and its fleet moved deeper into the galaxy, they left behind a trail of destruction. The question was no longer if the galaxy could stop them, it was how could they. Fears spread, and for the first time in galactic history, the greatest threat the universe had ever known wasn't a distant, forgotten enemy. It was humanity. The galaxy was in chaos. After humanity's first devastating strike, the galactic leaders were forced to confront a terrifying new reality. The sudden appearance of the Wrathbringer and its fleet had shattered the delicate peace that had existed for centuries. What had once been a thriving, united galaxy was now divided by fear and suspicion. The once imposing civilizations, confident in their advanced technologies and vast fleets, now found themselves scrambling for answers. How could a species so young, so newly emerged from their homeworld, have such power? The first weeks following the attack were a whirlwind of panic. The galaxy's most advanced forces, led by the United Galactic Coalition, scrambled to assess the damage. Their most powerful fleet had been wiped out in an instant, and their flagship had been reduced to space debris. The Coalition's leaders were desperate to formulate a plan. But the more they tried to understand humanity's newfound strength, the more elusive the answers seemed to be. Rumors swirled that humanity had discovered an ancient technology hidden in the far reaches of space, something that had been long forgotten by the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations. Some believed that humanity had unearthed a long-lost weapon capable of destroying entire fleets with a single strike. Others thought humanity was merely using superior tactics and unexpected strategies to overpower their enemies. The truth, however, was far more complex than anyone realized. While the galaxy's leaders met in secret to discuss a response, humanity's forces continued to advance. The Wrathbringer moved deeper into Coalition space, accompanied by a growing fleet of smaller, faster ships. The humans had no interest in negotiating or seeking peaceful resolutions. The message was clear. Humanity was here to claim its place as the dominant force in the galaxy, and anyone who opposed them would face annihilation. At the heart of humanity's strategy was something the galaxy had never seen before: an ability to move undetected, to strike with such precision and speed that their enemies could not respond in time. The human fleet was like a shadow, slipping through enemy lines, vanishing before it could be engaged, and attacking from the most unexpected angles. The rest of the galaxy was left wondering how humanity had developed such an advanced strategy in such a short time. The first signs of humanity's true power were seen when they wiped out a massive Coalition space station in just a matter of minutes. This station, the Starfall, was considered one of the strongest and most heavily fortified outposts in the galaxy. It housed thousands of soldiers, dozens of warships, and a massive array of weaponry. Yet when the Wrathbringer arrived, the station had no time to respond. A single, well-aimed shot from the human ship's weapons completely disabled the station's defenses before it even had a chance to retaliate. In a matter of seconds, Starfall was nothing but a pile of smoldering metal and debris. The destruction of Starfall was a turning point. It sent a shockwave through the galaxy's defense forces, and many began to question whether they could even hope to stop humanity. The Coalition called for a Grand Council, bringing together the leaders of all the galaxy's major powers to form a united front. They could not allow humanity to continue its campaign of destruction. They had to act, and they had to act quickly. But as the council met, they were forced to confront a difficult truth. The Coalition could not defeat humanity in direct combat. Their fleets were powerful, But humanity's ships were faster, more unpredictable, and their weapons seemed capable of piercing through even the most advanced shields. Worse, the humans seemed to know exactly where and when to strike. Each battle they fought against humanity was a battle lost. As the Council debated what to do, there were whispers of a secret weapon being developed by the galaxy's most advanced species. The Zelvans, a mysterious race known for their vast knowledge of ancient technologies, had claimed to have found a way to neutralize the human threat. They had uncovered a device buried on a distant planet, an artifact that they believed could neutralize humanity's advanced technology. The device, they said, was a powerful disruptor that could render all human weapons useless, completely shutting down their ships and fleets. But the Zelvans' offer was not met with universal support. Some of the other galactic species saw it as too risky, too dangerous. What if the device didn't work as expected? What if it harmed more than just humanity's ships? The tension between the Council's members grew, and before long, the unity that had held the galaxy together began to crack. Meanwhile, humanity was not standing still. Their ships continued to strike at the heart of the galaxy, taking down one key target after another. Every time the galaxy thought they had a chance to regroup, humanity would strike with even more force. Every defeat only seemed to strengthen the resolve of humanity's leaders. The Wrathbringer was not merely a ship. It had become a symbol of a new order that humanity was determined to create. And as the weeks passed, the idea of humanity's unstoppable might began to sink in. But even as the galaxy's powers struggled to unite, there was a growing sense of fear among them. Not just fear of the humans themselves, but of what would happen to the galaxy if they could not stop them. Humanity's rise to power was swift, and its strength seemed unparalleled. The galaxy's leaders could no longer ignore the reality. The balance of power had shifted. The age of humanity had begun. The final blow came when humanity targeted the most sacred and fortified region of the galaxy, the Ascendant Citadel, the seat of the Galactic Council itself. The Citadel was believed to be the most secure place in the galaxy, surrounded by a network of powerful defenses and guarded by fleets from every major galactic power. But to humanity, it was nothing more than another obstacle in their path. In the dead of night, the Wrathbringer and its fleet approached the Citadel. The defenses, once considered impenetrable, were rendered useless in seconds. A barrage of energy blasts hit the Citadel's outer walls, and in a matter of minutes, the seemingly invulnerable fortress crumbled. The members of the Galactic Council, including leaders from the largest and most powerful races in the galaxy, were taken hostage. It was a stunning act of dominance. Humanity had proven something that no one had thought possible. They could challenge the established order and emerge victorious. The galaxy was no longer a place of peace and cooperation. It was now a place of fear, where the powerful had to constantly look over their shoulders, wondering when humanity would strike next. The war was not over, but it was clear now that humanity would not stop until they had bent the galaxy to their will. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now it would pay the price. And with each passing day, it became more and more obvious that this new war would be unlike any other. The galaxy was facing an enemy that was relentless, unpredictable, and determined to reign supreme. The war was not going as anyone had planned. The once glorious fleets of the United Galactic Coalition, once the envy of the galaxy, had been reduced to scattered remnants. One by one, their most formidable ships and stations were falling, leaving nothing but smoldering wreckage in their wake. The Wrathbringer and its fleet moved with terrifying precision, each strike a calculated and devastating blow to the galactic powers. The galaxy's leaders were in disarray, scrambling for solutions that never seemed to come. They had underestimated humanity, and now it was too late to turn back. The humans had unleashed something the galaxy had never seen before, an unrelenting force with an unyielding will to dominate. It wasn't just about power, it was about purpose. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for supremacy. In the heart of the Galactic Council chambers, Representatives from all the major species sat in silence, each grappling with the weight of their failure. The Coalition's command had called for an emergency summit, bringing together the brightest minds from all corners of the galaxy. They were desperate. How could they stop a force like humanity? And what was their ultimate goal? The answers were not easy to find. Some leaders suggested they might try to form an alliance with the humans, hoping to offer some kind of truce, but that suggestion was quickly shot down. Humanity had made it clear from the beginning that they would not be swayed by diplomacy. They had come for more than just territory. They had come to reshape the very structure of the galaxy itself. It was a terrifying realization for all involved. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of space, humanity continued its campaign, and it seemed unstoppable. The Wrathbringer had now shattered all but the last remaining pockets of the Coalition's military might. The once thriving systems were now little more than ghost towns, their population fleeing before the inevitable onslaught of humanity's forces. The humans were not just destroying cities, they were erasing entire civilizations from the galaxy's map. No one had ever expected this level of ruthlessness, and it sent a chilling message across every system. Humanity would stop at nothing to achieve its goal. Back on Earth, the leaders of the human forces knew that their victory was near. They had the upper hand, and with each passing day, their grip on the galaxy tightened. But even with victory so close at hand, there were signs of strain within humanity's own ranks. The weight of their actions began to take a toll on some of their leaders. General Cassandra Reeve, one of humanity's most respected commanders, stood at the bridge of the Wrathbringer, staring out at the stars. There was a time when the thought of war on such a grand scale had been unimaginable to her, but now it was all they knew. She had seen countless battles, watched entire fleets fall, and witnessed the devastation humanity had brought upon the galaxy. And yet she could not shake the feeling that something was missing. Was this the victory humanity had hoped for, or had they become something they were never meant to be? As Reeve stared into the void, a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Captain Jarek, one of the commanders of her fleet. "We're moving on to the next system, General. The final targets are in range," he said. Reeve nodded, but there was no excitement in her response. "Proceed," she said flatly. She turned to face him, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. "Jarek, do you ever wonder what we're becoming? What the galaxy will look like when this is all over?" Captain Jarek hesitated for a moment before answering. "We're fighting for our survival, General. We're showing the galaxy that we can stand tall, that we can't be trampled anymore. That's what matters." "But at what cost?" Reeve's voice grew softer, almost wistful. "Look at what we've done. How many lives have been lost? How many worlds wiped out? She paused, looking out once more at the stars. "I don't know if I can justify this anymore. Can we ever go back from this?" Jarek remained silent, but the question lingered between them. Meanwhile, the galaxy's leaders had begun to regroup. Although their defenses were in shambles, they had not completely given up. Several of the more resistant factions had joined forces, forming a ragtag coalition of their own. It was small, composed of some of the galaxy's lesser-known powers, but their determination was fierce. They had witnessed humanity's brutality firsthand, and now they were fighting for survival. But their efforts were not enough. Even with their combined forces, the humans remained a step ahead. Every attack, every countermeasure seemed futile. Humanity's fleet was too advanced, too coordinated. The galaxy's military strategies seemed outdated, ineffective in the face of this new threat. And then, just when the galaxy's resistance seemed on the brink of collapse, something unexpected happened. A new fleet, larger and more powerful than any humanity had seen before, appeared on the outer edge of human-controlled space. It was led by a ship that dwarfed even the Wrathbringer in size and firepower. Its arrival sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Could this be a new force? Could this be the beginning of a counterattack? The fleet was composed of species that humanity had long viewed as insignificant. The Zelvans, the Krathians, and the Soraki. All races that had once been swept aside by the more powerful galactic empires had banded together to form a coalition of their own. Their ship, the Eclipse, was the centerpiece of their fleet. The Eclipse was rumored to contain technology that could disrupt the very fabric of the human ship's energy systems, a device capable of neutralizing humanity's devastating weapons. For the first time in months, there was a glimmer of hope. The galaxy's leaders began to rally around the idea of a final stand, pooling their resources and their technology in a desperate attempt to turn the tide. The confrontation was set. As the Eclipse and its fleet approached human space, the Wrathbringer and its fleet prepared for the inevitable battle. This was it, the final clash that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Would humanity's relentless assault continue, or would the galaxy's remaining forces finally find a way to strike back? The battle began in the far reaches of space, far from the prying eyes of the galaxy's citizens. The Eclipse fired first, unleashing a series of beams that struck the Wrathbringer with incredible precision. The Wrathbringer's shields held for a moment, but soon the ship was rattling with impacts. Humanity's warships counterattacked, but the new disruptor technology was unlike anything they had ever faced before. The Wrathbringer's weapons sputtered, its shields flickered, and for the first time in months, humanity's forces found themselves on the back foot. The galaxy's resistance was not finished, not yet. The question now was simple. Could humanity adapt in time to overcome this new threat? Could they still claim victory, or had they finally met their match? The war had reached its most critical point, and the galaxy was on the edge of a new era. What would emerge from this final confrontation? Only time would tell. The battlefield had been set on the edge of a dying star system, an empty, dark region filled with debris and broken satellites, now chosen as the final stage of the war. On one side stood the unstoppable human fleet, led by the Wrathbringer, bruised but not broken. On the other, the united forces of the galaxy's last remaining defenders, their hope resting in the experimental weapon aboard the Eclipse, the Disruptor. Both sides knew this was the end. There would be no surrender, no retreat. This would decide everything. Inside the command deck of the Wrathbringer, General Cassandra Reeves stood tall, though her eyes were heavy with the weight of war. Her crew waited silently as the final orders were given. Around her, screens flickered with enemy movement, fleet formations, and energy readings. It was the largest enemy force they had faced yet. The odds had shifted, the galaxy had adapted. But so had humanity. "This is it," Reeves said, her voice calm but sharp. "If we fall here, they'll try to erase us from history again. But if we win, the galaxy will never forget who we are." At that moment, the Eclipse fired the first blast, a shockwave of energy that rippled across space, designed to disable the humans' advanced weaponry. The energy struck several ships instantly. Human systems blinked. Some smaller ships shut down completely, drifting dead in the water. The Disruptor was working. Panic started to rise in the control rooms of the human fleet. Their advantage was slipping. The tech that had made them unstoppable was being torn apart by the very civilizations they had once dismissed. Across the galaxy, people watching from hidden shelters and remote outposts held their breath. But Reeve didn't flinch. "Switch to manual systems," she ordered. "Strip out the smart tech. Use what's left. We didn't come this far to let one trick stop us." The engineers on board scrambled. Humanity had always been known for one thing more than its weapons: its ability to adapt, improvise, and fight even when outmatched. The AI cores were shut down, replaced by manual targeting and old-school combat protocols. It wasn't elegant, but it was effective. Soon, the Wrathbringer roared back to life, its main guns firing in steady bursts. It wasn't the unstoppable juggernaut it once was, but it was still deadly. It led the charge through enemy lines, pushing past the wall of ships that formed around the Eclipse. The battle turned brutal. Explosions lit up the void like dying stars. Ships collided, broke apart, and vanished in flashes of white fire. The human fleet fought with fury, losing many, but taking down even more. The coalition pushed back, refusing to let their last stand fail. Inside the eclipse, Commander Thalos of the Zelvan race stared at the readings, watching as their disruptor's effect began to fade. Humanity's systems were adapting, adjusting to the energy. Their weapons were slowly coming back online. Thalos clenched his jaw. They're learning, even during battle, just like before. His second-in-command replied, "We can still overload the disruptor. If we push it past the limit, we might take them all out in one final burst. But we'll destroy ourselves too," Thalos said quietly. He looked around at the crew, brave soldiers, engineers, fighters from all across the galaxy. They knew what was at stake. He gave a nod. "Do it." Back on the Wrathbringer, the readings changed. A surge of energy began to form within the eclipse. Reeve knew something was wrong. They're going to self-destruct the disruptor, she realized. They're trying to take us all with them. But it was too late to turn back. The Wrathbringer dived toward the eclipse, engines burning red-hot. It wasn't a strategic move. It was a desperate one. Reeve's voice rang through the ship. "If they destroy us here, they'll think they've won. We can't let that happen. Brace for impact." The final seconds were chaos. The Wrathbringer collided with the eclipse just as the energy surge reached its peak. A shockwave of blinding light exploded outward, spreading for thousands of kilometers. Systems crashed. Ships were thrown across space like paper in a storm. For a moment, it seemed the galaxy itself had gone silent. And then, darkness. When the light faded and the smoke cleared, the battlefield was quiet. Both flagships were gone. The Wrathbringer, destroyed. The eclipse, silent. Only fragments of metal and shattered hulls floated in the void. The two most powerful ships in the galaxy had wiped each other out. The rest of the fleets, both human and coalition, pulled back. The battle was over. But there was no celebration. No cheers. Only silence. Across the galaxy, the news spread. The war had ended not with a surrender, not with a peace treaty, but with mutual destruction. Humanity had proven its strength beyond question, but it had also paid the ultimate price. In the following weeks, the galaxy began to rebuild. The coalition slowly reformed, but now with new respect and fear for what humanity had become. No one dared attack them again. What remained of the human fleet withdrew to their own systems, silent and watchful. They did not ask for territory. They did not try to control the galaxy. But their presence was felt everywhere. Humanity had left a message written in fire and steel. "We are not your pawns. We are not your servants. We are not your forgotten." They were survivors, warriors, and now legends. The galaxy would never forget the war that changed everything. The war that made the entire galaxy fear humanity's wrath.